Recording.
Hello, hello.
Hello,
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. I am good. Well, nice to meet you. And I want you to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, nice to meet you. So I'm Scott Glassman. I'm a Montreal filmmaker, and I'm presenting my film Lior at the festival.
Cool. Well, tell us more about Lior. It seems so interesting.
Yeah, so the film is basically about an elderly man that approaches his home care doctor with the possibility of an assisted death, and then struggling with the process of how that works exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of movies actually talking about this subject. Have you had any difficulties like explaining to the like even to the cast or like researching the matter? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of films made about elderly people and end of life and kind of that headspace and that life stage. But assisted death is a new topic, and specifically in Quebec, it's a very new topic. And at the time that I shot the film in 2021, it was only 6 months after they had changed the law in Quebec where they made assisted death more accessible, but there's still a lot of like nuances in it. So I actually like sat down with a Quebec doctor and like kind of interviewed them before shooting the film to understand where this was at exactly. And like from what I understood, like um, when if you're anyone, but specifically elderly, approaching someone for an assisted death, they have to go through if it's up to the doctor's discretion if they want to like go through with this or not. And if they do want to administer it, then like they have to go through this 3 month process where they gauge if this is something they're comfortable doing because they found like typically after a life altering thing, so let's say become a paraplegic or your significant other passes away or something like that, they found usually takes like 3 months to like adjust to that new life stage. Um, so it was difficult kind of to just understand all the new, there's a lot more nuances, but to understand all of that was a little complicated. And then to explain it to everyone and then to put it in like to a script film format was a little complicated. And then dealing with it, like we're dealing with my, obviously
Yeah.
the main actor is an elderly man and Bernie Lieberman. And, there's like tough conversations you have to have with like me being at the time a 24-year-old and my idea of what that is and his idea and trying to understand the lived experience of that age and relating to that headspace. So I guess those were like the more emotional technical difficulties. We had some logistic difficulties, which every film
Like
has, like
what?
restaurants
Like
and
what?
stuff. Oh, like the restaurant we shot at.
Yeah.
So this film is actually all inspired. Obviously it's exaggerated and made into a film, but it's inspired by my grandfather who was living through a difficult time, and we, as a family, were like inquiring about assisted death and
Mm.
trying to understand what that process would look like. Um, and so we shot a lot of the stuff around Montreal, places that like meant a lot to me and my family. So we shot at the at a restaurant in NDG that we'd always go to with my grandfather.
Mm.
And there was just a misunderstanding where you think like you think you have the restaurant for a certain amount of time and you don't, and all that stuff. So we're like in the middle of shooting, and then the restaurant's opening, and there's people coming and stuff like that, where you didn't anticipate
Extras.
that you'd have to pack
These were
everything up. And
extras.
sorry.
These were extras. You just had to made them sign, an NDA. Yeah,
Yeah, well, we moved everything in the restaurant, brought all our lights in and
yeah.
everything.
I
So
imagine.
stuff like that. There's like definitely some logistic stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, my question is how hard it is, or maybe that was not hard, to like compact and compress all what you talked about in a short movie because it's something related to emotions. It's not something like it is
Yeah.
action based, but it's mostly like there's always it's emotion. There's an emotional attachment in here. So how hard was it to show it in a short movie?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I almost shot way too much dialogue and we just cut a lot of it out.
Mm,
So I feel like there's like, especially as I'm sure any filmmaker will tell you, like the more distance you get from something, it's just easier to like look at. So like
mm,
In retrospect, like I think there was a lot of emphasis because you're dealing with a sensitive subject and you want to make sure you're like conveying it or making people understand or whatever. But then, each draft of the edit, we just kept taking out dialogue and taking out dialogue and taking out these little things. And then, the film is kind of has like this like voyeuristic, like slow cinema vibe to it a bit.
mm,
So it was just watching this elderly man on his own, I feel like is the power. And
mm,
you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like if you could see your grandparent alone for a day, like how would you feel, I guess, is like kind of how I was thinking about it.
mm,
Um, because like there's so much beauty in being present with your grandparents or elderly people in general.
mm,
But when you're not there, which is obviously the majority of the time, I guess I just wanted to have this like slow, that like you're saying, like that I feel like that's where the emotion is just like being present with their day-to-day emotions,
mm.
and then just trying to have like enough in the dialogue to get at what I guess the topic is.
Okay. How much are you influenced by like Quebecan cinema or Canadian cinema in general? Like, I want to, because I watched the movie actually, and I saw a lot of like, I would say foreign influences to the movie. So I want to know more about
Mm.
your personal, like, as a filmmaker, your personal influences.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I definitely love Canadian, specifically Quebecois cinema for
Mm,
sure. A recent Quebecois film that I really liked was Noémie Dioui. I
mm.
thought that was a really great film. Obviously, I like most of Dolan's work.
Mm.
Um, but
We all
there's a
do.
lot of sorry.
We all do.
Yeah, yeah.
Love his work.
But there's I love Kip cinema. This film was yeah, I guess I do like kind of like Euro art cinema a
Mm.
lot. Um Michael Haneke was like a big influence for
Yeah,
this, where his film
exactly.
Amour, yeah. So
Exactly. I thought
yeah,
about this movie when I saw like the shot.
yeah, so
Beautiful. Yeah.
exactly. Amour was the North Star for everything, where it's like
Mm,
this slow pace, compassionate, bleak. That's a cool thing about Haneke's work, is that it's like compassionate and bleak at the same time, where it's like really dry, but he finds the beauty in the
mm,
compassion
mm,
of these bleak scenarios. So that was definitely the main influence for this film. But in general, I love the Dardenne brothers.
mm.
I love I love Lars von Trier.
Yeah.
I love Celine Sciamma.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I'm blanking, but
You've got
yeah,
all
I guess
the
Euro
good
art
references,
cinema.
the most amazing references in cinema. This is it, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. But for this film specifically, we really only had one reference, which was Amour,
Yeah.
Haneke's film. That was like let's try to get as close to that as we can.
Okay. So last question, what do you say to the filmmakers who's struggling right now to do their films? Struggling both, I would say financially, but also in writing. Because I get a lot of questions about like, where do I start? Shall I start with a synopsis? Shall I start with a dialogue? Shall I start with, so what do you say to the filmmakers?
It's interesting because I come from like a writing background, so I was like studying as a screenwriter. This is actually my first short film. Lior's my
Mm,
first short film. Um, so for the writing part of it, I'd say like everyone has a different process. I'm still figuring out my process and how many, there's different techniques or tricks, whether it's free writing or forms of meditation or whatever your thing is. Like
mm,
I would just say just try a million things. Like you don't know what your thing is, and maybe your process always changes. I would just say like do it. Like,
mm,
and that's where most people are working full-time jobs or students or whatever they're doing. And it's really, really hard to block out time, but just like and I think setting realistic expectations for those sessions are really important. So like if you're setting 2 hours a week aside, whatever it is, so twice a week you're setting it aside an hour, maybe it's just writing your feelings about something you want to write, and then writing a character, and then writing an opening scene, and then writing a scene you have in your head, and making realistic goals so that's been a big thing for me, is making realistic goals so that you're at the end of your session you're motivated to go back to the project. If you sit down and tell yourself you're going to make a masterpiece or you're going to write 10 pages or whatever, it's like overwhelming. So it's like,
mm,
you know, especially the start of a project before you get lost in it. I feel like it's like write down for let's say for this like I like when filmmakers break down their specific things. So let's say for like Lior, I had a lot of personal feelings about my experience in real life with all this family stuff. So I just the first step was like just free write like journal entry all the stuff about my feelings, got all that down. Then the next thing is like, okay, well, what would this look like in a film? So
Mm,
write a scene, doesn't matter if it's in the film, doesn't matter. And then I write, and then you start building momentum, and that gets your gears turning. And so I
mm,
would say like setting realistic goals and being like proactive towards them is super important. And then for filmmaking, I think a lesson I learned is just go shoot. Same thing, like just go shoot stuff
yeah.
and shoot anything.
Mm,
Um, and cinema is a very expensive art medium, like no budget short films. If you
mm,
if you put $10,000 into a short film, it's considered no budget.
mm,
So, most people just starting out aren't going to put $10,000 into a project,
right.
and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I just mean like go shoot anything. We all have cameras.
Mm,
We all have phones that have cameras. If you don't have a
100%.
camera,
Mm,
go shoot anything. And then see also like the difference in if even if it's something super short, like if you're gonna like write a 2-minute short film, write it or outline it or however you have that part of the process, and then shoot it. And for me, coming from a writing background, it's been a process of understanding the importance of visual language
mm,
and how different that is from what you write on the page. So like even with Lior, there was a lot of stuff. It translated differently. Some better, some worse,
mm,
but yeah, I'd say setting realistic goals, being proactive, and then getting some experience shooting on your own to understand like when you start committing your time and energy and other people's time and energy, because cinema takes a whole crew.
mm,
When it gets to that stage, you'll be a little more prepared, but also just jump in.
mm,
Also just
mm.
jump in because you
Yeah.
can't you can't just wait all the time.
Yeah, so interesting. It's really a good like depiction of for me. It's really that was so interesting. Well, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to ask everybody to like follow our channel because these interviews are going to be available on our YouTube channel, Vimeo channel, like in a few hours. So, well, thank you a lot. Anything you would love to say before the end of this interview?
No, not really, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool.
Excited to share the film at the festival, and yeah, I'm excited to meet the other filmmakers.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Awesome. Have
Yeah,
a good one.
bye.